The night glittered with elegance. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and music hummed softly through the grand ballroom. Rachel Palmer, 37, stood tall in her emerald gown, awaiting the moment she would be honored for her work in sustainable education. Months of anticipation had led to this, her night. But in a quiet moment, she slipped away to the restroom to collect herself. That's when the air shifted. Standing at the mirror, reapplying her lipstick, was a face Rachel hadn't seen in over 15 years, her mother. Her elegance was intact, her posture still rigid, but her eyes cold and distant. "Rachel," her mother said flatly, as if greeting a neighbor rather than her estranged daughter. Rachel steadied herself. "I could say the same. What brings you here?" "Your father and I were invited. We've always supported education." "I'm being honored tonight," Rachel replied, meeting her mother's gaze. For a brief second, she saw surprise flicker in her eyes, quickly masked by indifference. "Well," her mother said, turning back to the mirror, "everyone finds their way eventually." The words pierced Rachel's heart, dragging her back to the day she'd left home, the day they made it clear she wasn't enough. Her mother's casual dismissal was like pulling a thread, and suddenly, Rachel's past began to unravel in her mind. She was 19 again, standing in the living room, clutching her community college acceptance letter. Her father's face was red with fury. "This family has standards," he'd said, pacing like a judge delivering a sentence. "You've done nothing but drag us down." Her mother didn't defend her. She didn't even look up from her phone. For years, Rachel had battled depression, quietly suffocating under the pressure to be perfect. Any attempt to open up was met with irritation. "What could you possibly be sad about? You have everything," her mother once told her, not knowing she was speaking to a daughter who felt like she had nothing at all. When her grades slipped in high school, her parents saw shame, not struggle. And when community college was the only door that opened, they slammed their own door shut. Her father's final words still burned in her memory. "Fine. Waste your life. But you'll do it on your own." That night, she left with nothing but a duffel bag and the crushing knowledge that her family no longer considered her part of theirs. Rachel's first weeks alone felt like free falling with no safety net. She slept on a friend's pull-out couch, her few clothes folded neatly into the corner as if tidiness could make up for the chaos inside her. Community college wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. She worked part-time at a diner, balancing greasy plates by day and chemistry textbooks by night. Rent was paid late more often than not, but the tiny studio she eventually moved into felt like freedom. There was no one to criticize her now. No icy glares when grades weren't perfect. No silent dinners where her presence felt like a burden. She could breathe, even if the air was thin. Her first chemistry exam was a turning point. Weeks of studying led to a single piece of paper with 92% scribbled in red ink at the top. It wasn't just a grade, it was proof. Proof that she could succeed without their approval. With every shift at the diner, every page of notes, she built a life one fragile piece at a time. The shy, insecure girl who left home with nothing was slowly becoming someone who could stand on her own. She didn't know it yet, but these small victories were planting the seeds for something far greater, a future that would take her across oceans, into world-class universities, and onto a stage she never dreamed she'd stand on. By the time Rachel earned her associate's degree, she wasn't just a student, she was a fighter. Every late-night study session, every dollar saved from diner tips had pushed her forward. She transferred to a four-year university and dove headfirst into chemistry. The subject that once intimidated her became her passion. She interned in research labs, working with mentors who valued her persistence more than her pedigree. One of those mentors, Dr. Collins, saw something in her others had missed. "Rachel," he said one afternoon, "there's an opportunity at Oxford University, a research position in environmental chemistry. I think you'd be perfect for it." She laughed at first, thinking it was impossible. Oxford was for the chosen few, not for girls who once failed high school classes. But Dr. Collins insisted. "Don't let fear decide for you." Weeks later, an email changed everything. She'd been awarded a grant to conduct research at Oxford. She packed her life into a backpack and boarded a plane to England, telling only her Aunt Lydia, the one family member who had always believed in her. Oxford was intimidating. The accents were foreign, the culture unfamiliar, and the work challenging beyond anything she'd known. But the more she immersed herself, the more she felt she belonged. She wasn't just studying chemistry anymore, she was contributing to research that could shape the future. And for the first time, she wasn't looking back. Years at Oxford flew by in a blur of lab experiments, academic conferences, and sleepless nights. Rachel completed her master's degree, then pushed forward into a PhD program. The work was grueling, but every breakthrough felt like proof that she was exactly where she was meant to be. When she finally defended her dissertation, she walked out of the room knowing she had earned her place among the top minds in environmental chemistry. But what came next felt almost unreal, an offer to become a professor at the University of Cambridge. Standing in the grand lecture halls of Cambridge, Rachel felt a quiet pride. She wasn't just teaching formulas, she was mentoring students who, like her younger self, might have been told they weren't good enough. Each lecture was a reminder. Her life had not been defined by the night she was kicked out, but by every choice she made after. Her parents had never called, not for her graduation, not for her doctorate, not even when her name appeared in academic journals. She'd stopped expecting it. Instead, she poured her energy into her students and research, building a career rooted in purpose, not approval. And yet, a small part of her still wondered if her parents even knew where she was, or if they cared. That question would be answered in the most unexpected way, on the very night she was to be honored for her life's work. The gala was in full swing when Rachel's name was called. Applause filled the room as she stepped onto the stage, the spotlight warm on her face. This was more than an award. It was a public acknowledgement of years of sacrifice and perseverance. Then the host's voice rose above the clinking glasses. In recognition of tonight's honoree, a generous and anonymous donor has pledged a $2 million grant to further their research. The crowd gasped. Rachel's heart pounded. $2 million could transform her work. But as the room buzzed, she noticed movement at the back. A tall figure stood abruptly and headed for the exit. Her chest tightened. Even after all these years, she recognized the set of his shoulders. Her father. Moments later, the truth came crashing down. The donor was not just any anonymous benefactor. The grant came from Mosaic Fertilizers, her father's company. The irony was bitter. The man who had cast her out, who refused to see her as anything but a disappointment, had unknowingly funded her greatest professional recognition. His reaction was immediate, disgust, as if her success was an insult. Rachel finished her speech, but the applause felt hollow. The money, once a symbol of opportunity, now felt tainted, and she knew she needed answers. Leaving the stage, she went in search of him. Rachel found him outside, standing by his car. "Dad!" she called, her voice unsteady but strong. He turned, eyes cold. "So, you're the one taking my money," he said with a bitter smile. "I don't know whether to be disgusted or impressed." "I didn't ask for it," Rachel replied, her voice firm. "I earned this. On my own." His expression hardened. "Doesn't change anything. You're still the failure I kicked out." For a moment, anger threatened to overwhelm her, but then something inside her shifted. She realized she didn't need his approval, not tonight, not ever again. Without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving him in the cold night air. The next morning, Rachel made her decision. The $2 million would not be hers to keep. She redirected every cent to fund scholarships for underprivileged students, kids who had been underestimated, overlooked, or told they'd never amount to anything. What once was a symbol of rejection became a tool for opportunity. The grant, tied to her father's company, would now lift others the way she had once fought to lift herself. As she submitted the donation paperwork, Rachel felt a quiet satisfaction. This was her legacy, not built on bitterness, but on hope. That night at the gala had started with an unexpected reunion and ended with a choice that defined her future. She had walked through fire and come out stronger, proving to herself and the world that she was more than their judgment.